you over the pizzas? Can I walk?
Yeah, no,
Oh, okay, I can walk.
you're
That'll
completely
be good.
free.
Okay.
Just going to do a brief introduction. We're going to get started here. I'm Mike Sopko, Vice President of the Sports and Entertainment Law Society, and I'd like to welcome you to Hoop Dreams, how Sonny Vaccaro revolutionized the business of basketball. I'd like to thank the Duke Bar Association, the Sports and Entertainment Business Association at Fuqua, and the Graduate and Professional Student Council for their support of this event. Sonny has asked me to announce that after we're done in here, between 1:15 and 1:30, we're going to reconvene in the Blue Lounge so that all of your questions can be answered. He's going to stick around for a while. He definitely wants to elicit questions from you, and just in speaking with a few of you, I know that there are many out there. The name Sonny Vaccaro is synonymous with amateur basketball. A zealous advocate of players and player rights, this Trafford, Pennsylvania native has been hailed as a sports marketing genius, and he is one of the most formidable forces in contemporary basketball. He has founded some of the most renowned and respected grassroots basketball programs in the country: the Round Ball Classic, the ABCD Camp, and the Big Time Tournament, which I had the privilege of attending when I worked in Las Vegas last summer. He has worked for Nike, Adidas, and Reebok, and was responsible for signing many of the game's greatest stars, including Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, to endorsement contracts. He left his position as the director of grassroots basketball for Reebok this past January to focus on his next goal, the creation of a national basketball academy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend, Sonny Vaccaro.
Thank you, Michael. You know, it's ironic in my fourth or fifth extension of my life that I'm speaking to Duke University, and the first thing I've done since I've gotten out of the corporate entity, the world. It's ironic in two ways, that my young friend here is from the same hometown I am. I'm originally from, Trafford, Pennsylvania, about 4,000 people. I knew his father, I knew his grandmother and grandparents, and I didn't know Michael until I met him in Las Vegas, but I knew the name. It's ironic in the sense that two people from Trafford, Pennsylvania, a town that you could call in the early 50s and after the war, an immigrant's town where all the parents were either steel workers, coal miners, or railroad people. And basically, that's what you did, and you had your own garden and whatever. And it's more, as you go through life and you see things happen, I never in my wildest dreams ever thought I'd be speaking to a group of kids from Duke University. And even the numbers, and I'm a number person in my mind, I always think it's amazing, it's going to be 1,000,000 to 1. Would you have a young person from that small town introducing an old person from that same small town at Duke University, which I thank you and I thank everybody for allowing me to come here in my first thing. I think I would be remiss in not introducing my wife, Pam. She's the one in the middle. And the one on her left is another Pam, a dear, dear friend of ours. Pam Valvano, you would know her, my dear friend for many, many, many years. And I'm so happy that you joined us. I'm so proud of you, and a lesson in courage, not only extended by your late husband, Jimmy, and yourself for continuing your family and your grandchildren and the dignity of your life, Pamela. So thank you for coming. I appreciate that. Also, talk about all the educators of the world, and I'm not of that world, although by osmosis I've segued into it, but I've never heard so much about somebody that I would never have met before, connected to the world that I was pretty involved in Mr. Hagan. Friends of ours, mutual friends over the years, and then speaking to some of the students, and especially Michael last night, it's almost like that, the old English Oxford professors, and Mr. Tibbs, or Mr. Tips, where they all rever and revere in his teachings and his life and everything else. And to me, meeting you on this stage, as opposed to meeting in one of our friends' office or something and having cordial handshakes, to me is very flattering, sir. I'm very happy that you made the attempt to get here today. With all that being said, I'll I'll bet you take a survey. I bet you all know who I am. You all have an opinion of me, either like or dislike who I am, or think I'm crazy or a little wild. Am I right? Is there anybody here that did not know or does not know anything about me? Put your hand up if you don't know me or know of me. So everyone has an opinion, and that's good. And you ask yourself why this guy, who I have an opinion of, right, wrong, or indifferent, would travel 2,500 miles to get here to speak to a group of kids he's never met before, and I know they have an opinion of me. And my answer to you is I wanted to. I wanted to speak to you if there are one of you, 100 of you, 1,000 of you. And I want to speak to other kids like you. Because when I took on this venture that I'm going to go through and I'm going to pursue in this whatever part of my life I'm in now, I've come to one solution. The only chance we have are not people like Paul and myself and my wife and other people who've lived through a lot of things in our society that we've watched happen, but in the world I lived in, where it directly revolved around kids. I said, I've got to go to the kids, and you're basically kids to me. And what I want to do is go to kids who have had an opportunity to be given information from people who have studied and have good art, and can articulate well, and can also give you a message. Again, some of the academicians don't agree with what I think and what I do, and I appreciate that. Some of the people that you've talked to, maybe your parents, or maybe you, maybe your basketball coaches, or maybe the basketball players, or whatever way you connect your life to mine. But I said, that's how it's got to be done. So I'm going to take this step, and I'm going to try and reach out to as many schools like this, marketing schools, law schools, and everything, and try and reach you guys so that you can carry this message. Because I think one of the great injustices in our society, our small world of sports, whether it's law or marketing, we're so infinitesimal in the scope of what's happening in the world. You people just went through a traumatic situation here at Duke that I'm not going to elaborate on naturally. But even going past that into the world affairs of today, it's so consistently inconsistent, the rules and the laws of our society. I'm not a lawyer, never went to a law school. A lot of my best friends are lawyers. And I sort of educated by self-education and by listening. I love to read, I love to listen. And I come to this thing and I said, how do you start, how do you begin? And I found out two things were interesting. The law and the rules. The law and the rules. It's interesting. The law, we know what the law is. The law worked out in the situation here at Duke. That was the law. Whatever was going to happen was going to happen. And whatever penalties or non-penalties were going to be applied, were going to apply. But rules. Rules are interesting, young people. Rules are something that you can pay attention to. Rules are something that people make arbitrarily in a small group without any electoral situation, and they directly influence the part of society or a part of the workforce or the non-working force that they control. They very seldom venture out into the total world and get total opinions. Otherwise, they make a rule that says you can't go back to your dormitory after 11 o'clock. That's the rule. And that may be fair or unfair, whatever, but the people who made it said that's what it is. You have no legal recourse whatsoever to do this. And where I'm going to go, after I take you to the beginning of Nike, is tell you how you, as an individual with a degree of intelligence in your body and youth on your side, can get some people to start and ask the questions and question the rules. My starting at Nike, there were no rules. I today could not have become Sonny Vaccaro. I never would have been here in 2006 if the rules applied to me in 1977. No way, no way. My education was junior college in California and Youngstown State University. And the only reason I ever made it to Youngstown State University was because I was a pretty good football player, got injured, and the basketball coach there liked my enthusiasm, and he kept me on a scholarship that I didn't know the difference between a 4-year and a 1-year scholarship. And he said, you're pretty good, you can help me get some basketball players. I never played basketball, but I was allowed because there were no rules. I I was the first graduate assistant coach who recruited players who was on a scholarship. They didn't know he was on a scholarship, didn't know I was recruiting players, but I was doing something I liked. Because I actually used to go pick up kids and take them to games and tell Dawn we should take this guy. My point is, when I went to Nike, $25 million in total sales, 1976. Check it out. All they ever did was give shoes out to runners. Steve Prefontaine was Phil Knight's favorite child. Okay? Nike in Oregon is synonymous to this minute with running. I went to him with an idea. I had an idea because I was this kid from Pittsburgh, the start of the game in Pittsburgh in 1965, that said all high school players should come and play in an All-American game. There was never an All-American game. Heaven forbid there's something for a basketball player in 1965. But I thought at 24 years old, no rules. You didn't have to be a certain age, certain color, certain anything. You didn't have to be a celebrity. I happened to be a non-entity teaching special education at Trafford High School. That was my job. Graduated from Youngstown State. There were no credentials. I didn't have Mr. Hagan writing me a personal introduction and say, please accept him into Morgan Stanley in New York and we'll get him on the board here someday. That didn't happen because there were no rules, there was no criteria. All there was ambition and a mind and a person willing to take a chance and a belief in themselves. So I was allowed to start this game. This game became something. I then was allowed to attempt something that would not be heard of today. Because I had camps, designed a shoe. I don't know anything about shoes. Let's stop that right now. I couldn't tell you a damn shoe from an Oxford, from a loafer, from a clodhopper. That was the term I used to have, clodhopper. And, from a thing. But I had ideas of what kids used to like to wear because I had my camps. And the kids would step down their tennis shoes and all this sort of stuff. I said, this would sell. Nike was pronounced Nicky. I thought it was Nicky. Okay? A friend of mine gave me an introduction to go to Oregon. I flew on my own dime. I had a knapsack, and you will remember a knapsack. You used to put potatoes in it, or farmers used to put all their vegetables in it in the 60s, in the 50s. That's what we used to do. I had a knapsack, my grandfather's knapsack. I put these 5 or 6 different shoes that a shoemaker in my hometown created for me to take to Phil Knight. I took them up there. They liked it. They took me to a Chinese restaurant for lunch. They kept my shoes. They liked my spirit, sent me home. Didn't hear from him. Swear to God, did not hear from him. But I kept persisting. There was a guy named Rob Strasser, who was one of the brightest minds I ever met in my life, and unfortunately he passed away too early in life. He liked my enthusiasm, just like Dom Roselli did at Youngstown in 58 or 59. And he said, how do we get involved in this basketball game? I said, well, give me some shoes to give away to some kids in New York. And at that time, Albert King and Wayne McCoy and Magic John, all these kids were like heroes. On the East Coast, and you kids, your parents would know because you have no clue as to who was good and who was bad in the old days. But on the East Coast, everything that came out of basketball was on the playgrounds, everything east of like the Allegheny River in Pittsburgh. Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Washington, New York City, everyone. That's where you had to go play your game. And I said, give me some shoes. I'll give them to the kids in the Dapper Dam, and let's see if we can do it. So he gave me some shoes. They flew to the Dapper Dam. Make a long story short, they loved my enthusiasm. And then they said, come back to Oregon. So I went back to Oregon. I met Phil Knight. Again, we like what you do. How do we get involved in basketball? Well, because of that game, I knew all the coaches. You have to understand something. In 77, 78, there was a company called Converse. It's rejuvenated itself because of Dwayne Wade now, that owned everything in marketing in the basketball. They sold everything. And why did they sell them? Because no one challenged them. No one did anything. And they used to trick people. Converse was like tricky. But they're called in America a nice tricky. See, because you're going to find out I wasn't nice. I was this unscrupulous Italian kid from Pittsburgh that must have something up his sleeve to induce all these people to do these things. But they paid their coaches, not with money, but with guest appearances at camps. And they used to send them and a wife to England, to this or to that, and then they would write you a check. And everyone thought, oh, that's nice, look at this. And then they would come and sell your school the shoes. I went to Phil, I said, that's wrong. I said, pay these guys. What? I said, pay these guys. Who? The college guys. Oh, we can't pay college. I said, yes, you can. There's nothing illegal about it. Oh, no. What do you mean pay them? Well, I'll go around. I'll get you college coaches. We'll give them money. We'll give free shoes to the universities. And I guarantee you those kids will wear the shoes. I guarantee you. Well, I'm going to tell you how much faith they had in me. Now, In 77, today Pam and I have 10, 20 cents saved. 77, I didn't have 10 or 20 cents. But I had a checking account, and I'll share some with you. In the old days, checks used to take a week to like get from here to there. It wasn't like today. You cash in, it's done. Like 1 second from now, debit, you're gone. You can't like trick it. And so I used to go to the schools. And my first friend, because I used to spend a lot of time in Las Vegas with Jerry Tarkanian. Well, that like, shoo, because you say Tarkanian, you have opinions, okay? And it was Las Vegas. So I go there, and Jerry's the first guy. And he said, you're going to give me $5,000? I said, yeah. He said, you're going to give me shoes? I said, yeah. He said, where do I sign? And now I'm going to share a story with Mrs. Valvano, ex-Mrs. Valvano. Sorry, Patty. And her late husband, Jimmy, was at Iona College. Jimmy, I have some sort of whatever it is. And I wish I could package it and put it in a book and make $1 zillion with it. I can spot talent. I'm pretty damn good at spotting the players and the coaches. I flew to LaGuardia Airport on one of my trips. And after I'd signed Tarkanian, Norm Ellenberger, Eddie Sutton, about 10 or 11 guys, and I met Jimmy Valvano at the LaGuardia Airport. True, God is my judge story. I never met Jimmy before. I heard about this guy who was a great clinician, had a great personality, and he was going to win. Iona College, just so I understand this. 1978, 79, 80, what the heck number it was. I meet Jimmy, and I go to him, and God bless his soul. I said, Jimmy, same thing I told Tarkanian. I'm going to give you $5,000. I'm going to give you shoes. And Jimmy said, what do I got to do? I said, nothing. Where are the shoes? He said, let me understand it. You're going to give me a check. Can I cash the check? I said, yeah. Wait a day, and you can cash it. But you can cash it. He said, you have a tape recorder with you. I said, why would I? He said, because I don't want somebody to think you're bribing me. I said, Jimmy, this is me, two paisans. We're sitting in New York. I was in trouble, he said. Do you have a tape recorder? I said, no. He didn't say that. But anyway, that's how it started. Then I would sign the guy. I would call Rob, who would tell Phil. They would then transfer the money. I didn't have the money in the bank. They transferred $5,000, $5,000. The people, Pacific Bank used to be our bank in the old days. It's now something else, Bank of America or something. But they must have thought I was a drug runner, a gun runner, or what the hell kind of a runner. Can I get these wire transfers, right into my checking account? True story. And that's how it started. Now, when the first story came out by the late, great Mark Asher, Washington Post, first guy nationally ever to cover Sonny Vaccaro, he covered me because he thought he had me by the cordons, okay? And he calls me, and big story. He didn't call me. He did the story. And the headlines of the Washington Post was Nike paying college coaches. Remember the day. I remember the article. My guy, Rob Strasser, calls me. You have to understand, these guys are like foreigners up there in Oregon. They had no clue. They didn't know anything other than the culture they lived in. It was raining on their head all day, okay? And they called me and Phil wants you to get up here. Get up here quick. Why, Rob? The Washington Post just put out an article, we're paying coaches. I said, Rob, we are paying coaches. He said, but they're going to kill us. And we were bartering at that time. We were like trying to get something on a trade, imports from China or something, Paul. We had a lobbyist, and they thought that was going to kill everything. We were going to be destroyed by Washington. I said, Rob, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to us. The Washington Post wrote about it. Funny thing was, okay, in the story, they had Jimmy's name. Go back to Jimmy. But he had him from the University of Iowa as opposed to Iona. True story. This is the way the Washington Post came out. Lute Olson, the head coach at Arizona, Hall of Fame Lute Olson, was in Iowa. He called me. I thought he was going to bitch and all that stuff. And I said, Lute, what's up? He said, Sonny, how do I get one of those deals? Swear to God. By the time I got the morning plane from there to Idaho to Portland, we owned the world. I had 9 or 10 schools. I swear to God, if they can, Nazis or Nike's like Nazi Germany. They're trying to rewrite the history books of what the hell we did in the 70s and 80s. They can't do it because as long as I'm living, they can't do it. As long as you kids listen and you talk about it, they won't ever be able to do it. That's why I'm talking to you. Don't let them burn the books on you. So I get up there. I said, you got it made. We're going to own basketball. Fine. We own basketball. I said, do you have faith in me? Well, let us know what you're doing. I said, I'll gladly do that. I'm not ashamed of anything we're going to do. So now we take that giant step, and we have from 9 or 10 to 60 or 70. I signed basically the whole country. The only guy who wouldn't sign was Dean Smith down here because he had one of those sweet-ass Converse deals. All the old Kentucky, all the old-time guys who were taken care of by Converse didn't come over. And so what happened? So eventually, I'm doing it. Then something more strange happened. About 1983, an attorney out of Washington named Rob Adidas, and the athletic director at University of Miami, Sam Jankovic, his name. Sam's still in business, and he's done a lot of good things since then. I get a call from this attorney named Rob Adidas. Rob's one of the most arrogant, toughest son of a buggers I've ever met in my life. And he calls me, Vaccaro, yeah, Rob Adidas here, representing Sam Jankovic, representing the University of Miami. Great, why didn't Sam call me? I represent them. I do all their stuff. Okay, good. He said, what do you want to talk about, Rob? Sam called me to ask you if Nike will sign a whole school. What do you mean I sign a whole school? Well, instead of just the basketball, we don't have a real good basketball team there, but he has a great baseball team and a great football team, and we win all the other intramural stuff and whatever. He wants to do something with this whole school. Swear to God. We did the first all-school deal, which are now in compliance with most of the major universities around here because they thought these great universities thought it was improper for us to pay their coaches, so that if we gave them the money, they'll disperse the money. That's the way it goes now, right, Paul? And pardon me? Except the Duke. No, he has a personal contract with Phil, because Mike can do that. So my point was, we did this all-school deal, and I didn't care. Let me tell you something else. Let me tell you right now, for the record, okay? For the record. I never, nor did any shoe company I ever worked with, ever say that we were not in business to make money. Otherwise, when Phil would come to me and say, you have $1 million, spread it among your coaches, I got it and I spread it around my coaches. And if we did an all-school deal and I was going to give you $200,000 for it, I didn't give a darn if you gave it to the soccer, the hockey, the tennis, as long as those kids wore the damn shoes. That's all I really cared about. So what I'm saying to you is, we never thought that anything would be different other than we're getting more kids in different sports to wear the shoes. So, and that goes back to where I'm going to go in about 2 seconds with this thing, is once I find out that, wow, look what just happened. We got a whole school for almost the same money I would have given the basketball coach or the football coach, whoever it was at Miami at that time. And it worked out well. Well, something strange happened. We now are on the cusp of the NBA. If any of you kids remember, the NBA, prior to Magic and Larry in '79, I believe it was the most meaningless professional sport in the history of mankind. Most of the guys were doing drugs, and I don't mean steroids. Most of the guys, you didn't know who they were. All the negative things. Their title game, the famous game where Magic won for the championship, was on tape delay on the West Coast when they beat Philadelphia. It was like a non-entity. So they came to me again, they being Phil, Rob, and a guy named Howard Schlusser, who was one of the all-time biggest antagonistic agents in the history of mankind, who happened to be employed by Nike, which I never understood. But until today, Howard's still employed by Nike, which they had their own agent, which is fine, because that wasn't a law, it was a rule, right? So anyway, they came to me and said, this is a great class here, class of '84. The Olympics were coming. Now we got some money. We got some money. We want to sign some athletes. And they gave me 5 names: Barkley, Jordan, Bowie, some other guys. And I said, okay, who are we going to get? Now, no one was paying serious money in the 80s. No one. It wasn't big. So they come to me, and we went to an off house, and I said, well, give it to the Jordan kid. Okay, we'll give him, but how much are we going to give to Barkley? I said, no, you don't understand. Give it all to Jordan, and make sure you get Jordan. Because Michael and the kids on that list still didn't know who in the hell Nike was. And Michael was going to wear Adidas, which he wore even when he didn't wear his Converse when he was playing for Dean, which he was forced to because Dean had to deal with Converse. But he wore Adidas. I said, no, you give it to I had never met Michael in my life. He never went to my camps, never played my All-Star games, but I saw him play. I saw him play the day they beat Georgetown. And I said, give it to the kid. And a famous statement to come out of there, and probably still trying to erase it, is, Slusher said to me, would you bet your job on it? Well, hell, they only pay me $500 a month or some stupid number. I said, yeah, sign this kid. Well, you know what happened. He turned out to be the best. But let me tell you the most interesting part, law people, and if there's any marketing people in here, swear to God. I always say that. It's the phrase I use because I'm so preoccupied with just trying to emphasize the honesty and the sincerity of what I'm speaking, is we met at the La Hermitage Hotel in Beverly Hills. Now, you guys may or may not know, but in the 50s and the 60s, there were a couple places in America. One was the Fontainebleau Hotel in Florida. Another one was La Costa down near San Diego. The other one was La Hermitage Hotel in Beverly Hills that had an affinity for people who may or may not have been connected to the mob, okay? And that lived, the La Hermitage, that was a major thing, man. And here I am, Sonny Vaccaro, going to La Hermitage. So we go there, Rob and myself and David Falk. Oh, the estimable David Falk. My first association with David, and why David doesn't like me, I don't dislike David. I just think he's his own best friend. And we met. And as sure as I'm sitting here, children, as sure as I'm sitting here, we did this deal. And Rob put up the numbers, $250,000 a year, royalty, whatever the hell it was. And then Falk said, we had a meeting, and that was a lot of money then, just so you know. And Rob and Falk said, let's have a break. So we went to lunch, and we came back in the room, and Rob used to work off an easel. He used to write things down and turn things over. And so Falk got on the easel and said, now, we are going to give Michael 25 cents a shoe or something. And Falk put up there $500,000 a year, and bonuses for making all league and all that silly crap, and then 5 cents a shoe. So we went back, and I turned to Rob, and Rob brought me in the first negotiation of that magnitude. I was the only one that I had a part in but didn't set the number for. I go back to Rob, and I said, well, we got to give it to him. I said, let me ask you a question, Rob. I said, why did Falk take the $500,000? I never forgot this. And David Falk to this minute can't refute it. He'll lie about it. Rob said to me, he gets 10% of the $500,000. He gets no percent of the 25 cents a shoe as we get down the line. And that, to me, woke my butt up. An agent, in the purest form, should represent your best interests totally and get what he's entitled to get as the agreement of the contract. An agent should never, ever put you in a situation, because the players to this minute, and sometimes they do because we had people like Paul Hagan looking over their shoulder most of the time, make sure that they get their fair share. When he told me that, and Falk sold Michael Watt, you know the history of Michael. The 25 cents per shoe was 20 times more than the when it got over with. And when we did the second contract, which I did with Rob and Falk again, it set the barometer so far off, because now Michael became a partner. Because what Falk was not smart enough to understand at 84, he was quick enough to understand in 87 or 88 when we did the second part of the contract. And then the third part was Brand Jordan. No one can ever underestimate the magnitude of that contract. Because from the Michael Jordan era, the signing of Nike, the representation of Falk, the whole commercial entity and the endorsement world started. That was the beginning of where we are today. That's why LeBron got $100 million. That's why Tracy and Kevin and Kobe all got money coming out, because of Michael Jordan, because he was able to do. The crazy thing about it, if Falk wouldn't have done what he did the first time, the Jordan brand would have been quicker to happen. Nike would have been poorer just by having to pay him so damn much. But the single significant thing that if you take nothing from this meeting, you take off, always look at the big picture. And always say to yourself, when you're representing your client, how do you lose clients? Eventually, they all talk. Eventually, they'll all know the deal. And you lose that guy by someone saying to you, that's what you got, or that's how much you charge. All the nuances of a contract that will come into it will enter into that renegotiate. The only way Falk was saved, Rob Strausser at that time was getting ready to leave Nike and start a new organization. Rob was my mentor. Rob went, and I was part of this. I was still with Nike, and I wasn't leaving Nike, and Rob and Peter were my dearest friends, and and Michael met with them, and they were going to start a new company, and they were going to have the Jordan name as part of the brand, they were going to be a partner with the new company. And it forced Phil and Nike to sign Michael to that second contract that we talked about. Then the third contract was Brand Jordan. But knowing then what was happening in the future, and this is where you should go with your law, and what part of the law you're going into, and what part of marketing, if any of you kids are in marketing in this class you go to, is if you can't see tomorrow, you'll never find today. It won't happen. It won't happen, because today is like so enticing to you. It's so interesting to you. And I'm going to give you one story on that, and then I'll go somewhere else. I'm going to tell you what today does. I represented the ABA for you young people. The ABA was the neophyte league that forced the NBA to merge in the 70s. Because of my high school all-star game, people came to me and said, Sonny, would you work for us and go around and talk to kids you know that played in the round ball and tell them about the ABA, and we'll allow, and for every kid you get, you'd get $3,500. I was like a bounty hunter, I'm being very honest. But it was unbelievable. I mean, $3,500 was a lot of money, and to a guy teaching special ed in Trafford, Pennsylvania in 1971. And I went, and I'm going to give you one story. The kid will swear by it and die by it because it's the truth. I went to Alabama, University of Alabama. There was a young player named Leon Douglas there. Leon Douglas turned out to be a pretty damn good college player and a very good pro for like 10, 12 years with Detroit and a couple other teams. I walked down to Tuscaloosa. Ever been to Tuscaloosa? It's a forlorn place, especially from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in the 70s. I go there, and Leon's in there with his teammates. They're really good players, and they're playing, playing cards. And I'm waiting for him, and I had this deal, and I wanted to get out of Tuscaloosa. It was like an 8 o'clock plane. And so I said, Leon, you got to see me. I got this deal I want to tell you about. I want to tell you about the ABA. He said, Mr. Vaccaro, can you wait a little bit? I said, okay, Leon, but I'd really like to get out. And so about 10 minutes later, he came out and said, what is it you want to tell? Well, I had this contract in what the kids were getting paid in the ABA. And I explained it to Leon that if you went with the ABA, I wasn't going to be his agent, he was going to hire somebody, then this is what you can make. I swear to God Almighty, he said to me, Mr. Vaccaro, I can't think of that right now. I said, Leon, it's a multi-million-dollar contract. Why? I'm stuck $20 in the Tonk game, which said to me that what I said about today. The $20 he was stuck was more relevant than the millions of dollars were on this contract that he was about to get into and earn millions of dollars because he couldn't see past today. I'm not saying bad things happen to Leon, but I just said what I said about if you can't think about tomorrow and where you're going in your future, you're going to struggle. You're going to paddle water. I mean, I've noticed it because I've lived that life. I've always tried to think what the hell's going to be next. And knowing all that and knowing those circumstances that have come about in my life and watching thousands of young kids brought me to where I am. And the last part of this, and I'll do okay on time, Michael. The last part of this, I want to tell you about those rules. Because after spending my Nike thing, I want to tell you something. And don't run me out of town and tar and feather me and put me on a thing. I think the rules that govern college athletes, the most asinine, one-sided, prejudicial rules that have ever existed in mankind. And I say that with sincerity and reflection on my life of 43 years living with this system in place. As you've heard me speak throughout the years, I have always attached by the umbilical cord to a shoe company, and anytime I spoke, Lucy and other reporters were free and easy with their discussion on me because obviously I had a vested interest because I was representing the shoe companies that were usually getting called to task. But the one thing I know, and if anyone ever does a nexus on me or research on me, every time I ever made a statement, I spoke from Sonny Vaccaro. I spoke of him, his ideas. Even though I worked for Nike, Adidas, and Reebok, and my bosses didn't always like that, I always made sure that this was me. In order for me to continue, I had to get away. And I broke away from Reebok 2 years ago in a contract, just so you know. A lot of money involved on sponsorship of the events I've done. The events I did were the biggest events of their kind in all of basketball. You can't take it away, they were. We are the most successful. I'm very proud of what we were able to do. But I said, if I'm going to go the next step, I've got to go and speak as an individual with no umbilical cords. I can't represent anybody, and I don't want anybody to interpret it as that. So I said to myself over these years, let me try and get some things done. Let me try and do something. The academy that Michael started about is a wonderful thing, and I don't want to dwell too much on that. It's a wonderful thing in the purity of it, because in most walks of life, there is some sort of a special academy that caters to an individual. There is the Academy of Arts and Sciences. Since day one, I mean, we've always catered in a different social structure in our society in America to different groups of individuals. This happened, whether it's private schools, religious schools, however you want to interpret it. We've given our youngest and our brightest a chance to excel. And this particular sport, who I think gets discriminated against more than any group of athletes in the world, was the one that put the bug up my butt, because I lived it. I lived it. I watched kids grow up, most of the minority kids over the years. Most of the kids basically come from nothing and made something of themselves. Some of them come from nothing and didn't make anything of themselves, and some of them are no longer here. But the process that's put in place for these kids is the hardest thing to navigate in all sports. Sport in the greatest, how do you say it, the greatest explanation, the greatest definition of sport is individual or individuals participating against each other to reach an outcome of fair play. And I'll buy that. That's what I think it was intended for. Sport in the purest form was never amateuristic. Even the ancient Olympic Games, there were prizes to the individuals when they ran across Athens. And anyone who tried to tell you different is BSing you. But sport, in our sport of basketball, is probably the most one-sided, because I've watched for the last 10 or 12 years, ever since I've taken on the Giants, of people using discriminatory words such as culture, thugs, street agents. Mostly applies to basketball people. And I couldn't take it anymore. I just can't do it as an individual, because those basic people they're talking about gave me a wonderful life. If it wasn't for sport and the sport of basketball and the kids that I was involved with, I wouldn't be here at Duke. I wouldn't have been married to my wonderful wife. I wouldn't have had opportunities to travel the world. Those kids, in their own way, gave me a platform to do things. And I feel that I have to do this. Whether I'm received or not is not my concern. I have to go, when it's all over, and say, I tried. I want to change. So I say to you that because I made a real big statement at the beginning, I don't think the people at the end of the way are bad people. I don't think the individuals there are bad human beings. I don't know if they wake up in the morning and say what they want to do. I think they're so closeted by the enormity of their institution that they're blinded. The money that involves itself in sports today is fantastic. It's off the wall. It's off the chart. The quote of the old Godfather saying, we're going to be bigger than U.S. Steel, if you all remember that line. Well, the NCAA is bigger. They're as big as anybody. And the funny thing about it is they receive all these benefits off the backs of kids. Every one of them. Every kid who's played a sport is the reason why, I don't know why the hell they had to build a museum to themselves, or a monument, or a mausoleum, or however the hell you want to do it, in Indianapolis, and cost millions and millions of dollars. I don't understand why they give interest-free loans. I don't understand why they give the president $1 million a year. I don't understand why their only sole interest in life is making it hard on their student athlete. I'm not going to go into it, and you people may understand it or whatever. But if they continue on this grade thing, they're basically going to cleanse the whole sport, because I don't believe that the educational system in America is an equal opportunity situation. I believe that kids come from different educational backgrounds, that they are bereft of getting a solid education before they attend a university like Duke University or any other university that gives itself credit for being a university and teaching the goodness of men and the values of individuals because of their rules. I can't believe that they sit up there in their monument to themselves and make these rules without the explanation or even the opportunity for the thousands and thousands of kids who participate under these rules. One of the things that galls me very much is when I watch the NCAA tournament and I see these ads saying, I'm Jimmy Joe Williams and I'm not going to play professional basketball, but I'm a veterinarian and I'm not playing for 60,000 people Monday night, but I got my scholarship and I'm an NCAA. And that's fine. God bless Jimmy Joe Williams, and I hope he's a good veterinarian. The only thing that they don't tell you is the reason Jimmy Joe Williams, and I'm not discriminatory in any such way, and I believe in gender equality. The only reason they tell you this is, the thing they don't tell you is because those kids are playing that basketball game on Monday night, and they're getting $6 billion from my good friends at CBS to generate all this revenue, that's how they paid for it. These kids, on the backs of those 10 kids, and the kids that played in the ladies' tournament last week, and the men's tournament, and I'll go into football in a second, but that's who generated the money off of these kids. I'm not going to sit here and look you in the eye and say I believe the kids should be paid. Never said that in my life. Go back and check all your records. All I said, I want them to be treated like human beings. The only thing I hear from coaches, and Coach K is one of the leaders in all the world, I hear we're going to look after, they had a summit meeting, and we're going to stop the assistant coaches from selling their tickets to the Final Four. What? That was on one of their agendas. Because assistant coaches, most of the schools don't get paid a lot of money, and they were getting paid to sell their tickets to scalpers, which is fine. I don't give a damn. It's funny, but that was a meeting. They had a meeting on that. And if you didn't attend the meeting, one of the penalties on the assistant coaches or the coaches who weren't in attendance was you lost your 2 tickets that you paid for to the Final Four. That's documented. But it's interesting. Razor's Gator or Razor's Edge, it's a ticket broking firm. I don't know, somebody can help me. It's Razor something. The NCAA, in its infinite wisdom this year, we're going to get those assistant coaches. We got, I want to be clear, 3,000 to 5,000, the number I haven't think, but I know. They made a deal with Razor Gator, the ticket brokers. The NCAA basically took the tickets to this game, the Final Four weekend, and sold them to a ticket brokering thing. And they made all this BS about assistant coaches selling their individual tickets, which were their individual tickets. But the NCAA, I don't know what the hell they did, but they did it. That happened. I just don't know the number. This esteemed group. The other thing is, they had a lawsuit. They never won a lawsuit in their life, this group. They sued assistant coaches because they didn't want them making so much money. They sued. They lost the lawsuit. But these very people that sued those kids and put them through bullshit because they were making $10,000 or $20,000 a year are the same people that tell you that they have no control over giving one of my dearest friends, young Billy Gillespie, I watched him grow up, $2.3 million to coach the University of Kentucky. Billy came to my house 5 years ago. He was the first assistant at the University of Illinois. It was getting $70,000. Now, I like progress, and I hope him nothing but the best. And I want them all. I'm not against anybody earning money. But I just didn't understand the rationale between the same group legislating against a group that really had nothing. And they tell you with good faith, and they look you in the eye, and they say to you, nothing? We're going to give that guy, where in the hell did he go? Alabama, that football coach? $4 million a year to coach a football team? When I wish the hell they'd put $4 million a year in their academic thing? When they talk about the University of Auburn, the University of Minnesota, where teachers write papers, where a coach that I was a dear friend with I watched him grow up and become successful. Actually had his kids not go to class. I never understood this crap. The only thing they involve themselves in is the monetary interest of these games. They lost a lawsuit to the NIT. Do any of you know, since Duke never plays the NIT, what the hell the NIT is? It's the National Invitational Tournament of schools in the 50s was pretty good until the shaving scandal shut it down. This honorable, esteemed group. They're saving points, we know that. This group kept promoting this game. It was for teams that weren't in the final 64. $54 million lawsuit, sir. They gave it to the NIT. I've been walking around like this for months, years, days, saying to myself, who is the NIT? Who got that 54? How did we transfer that 54 million? Did it go over here? Did it go to the Bahama Islands? Did it go to Cayman Islands? Did it go to the bookies in England? I don't know what the hell they did with that 54 million. Because the NIT is a committee of 4 people. That's all I see. John Powers, who's from Manhattan, and a couple other New York guys who've run this NIT. I have no idea what's happened. But the biggest one, and it happened under the auspices, and my learned friend will probably correct me today when we go after this, the BCS. I don't understand this BCS. I don't understand it. I don't understand it because they look me in the eye and they tell me we're going to have this bowl championship series and we're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars and we're going to pay individual schools $14 million for playing in the main one. And it's not run by the NCAA. Do you know did you hear what I just said? The NCAA has no control over the BCS because a few years ago, people were the rights to sell their television games and do what the conferences did. They rebelled against the NCAA very quietly. And they had this BCS. And they picked teams. It's just funny, because I think, again, it's a group. I don't know if this is a rule or a proclamation. I don't know what the hell this is, guys. But they said, we're going to control it. We're going to do this. And they were from the SEC, the ACC, the Big Ten, the major conferences. Then they said, in their infinite wisdom, that our teams are better than your teams in at Jackson State, at Middlebury State. They just assumed. They naturally were and are, but they made the rationalization and they said that. And we're going to give our teams a chance to play in this mega hit the jackpot lottery. And we're going to give the money out. So now we're giving all this money out to these teams. I think they put in, the reason Boise State got in this year because people were like uproaring, so they created a new game. And they'll probably create another new game as long as they can keep their game. As long as they can complete this whole triangle of ownership. The triangle of ownership, what? The BCS, the individuals, and the schools who are guaranteed participation. The triangle of ownership. I have never heard of anything in my life like this. They excluded all these other universities, all these other kids who are playing a sport to earn money, and they said, you can't participate. You can't. My alma mater, Youngstown State, can't participate. And I say to you is, who are these people? And who gets all that money? I want to know where this money goes. Does it go into a trust? I mean, because the NCAA has multitudes of money in a trust. When do they divide this up? Or is it good economics, sir, to just keep putting money away and putting them away until the day comes when, however we believe Armageddon is going to happen to us and at some eventual time, it disperses into the atmosphere and it makes riches of all the people who are going to live in the eternity we all want to live in. Is that what they're going to do with the excess? Because they haven't told me what they're doing with it now except build monuments to themselves. And the other good thing at the BCS, if you read USA Today 2 weeks ago, they bring everybody and their brother to the Final Four who to participate. They bring all the alumni, they bring a booster. Oh my God, the boosters. The boosters are the greatest institution in the world, boosters. Who the hell's the boosters? I'll get to them. I'm having fun with this. But they bring all these people to these games and pay them, but they can't get Mr. and Mrs. Jimmy Williams' mommy and daddy a hotel room, tickets to the game, or buy the airplane tickets. Can't do that. Swear to God, 1990, Dick Schultz was president of the NCAA. My wife and I were thinking of doing a charity. We were involved in some charities. And I wrote a letter. They probably burned the letter. To Dick Schultz saying, Mr. Schultz, why don't the NCAA go to Nike? I think I was with Nike then. It was right. And all the shoe companies, or all the entities that make money off the kids, and get a perpetual fund where we all put in $1 million. I use that as a hypothetical number, and allow the number to get interest. And for all the kids' parents who go to the Final Four, buy them their airplane ticket and pay for their hotel room and get them 2 tickets to the game. And it dawned on me because Ramil Robinson, who used to play for the University of Michigan, daddy was a postman, I think, in Boston or someplace. I don't know where it was, but I know it's a sad story, but it happens all the time. He couldn't get from wherever he lived, I think it was Boston, to Seattle. That's where the Final Four was that year. And I thought and we couldn't do it. We weren't allowed to do it. No one was allowed to do it. So I said, let somebody else start this fund. So let's treat the parents of the kids. Because unlike football, in basketball, the games you don't know who you're playing until next week. You play this weekend, and you go to the Final 16, you go to Final 8, you go to Final 4. Getting airplane tickets in a 3-day notice is the hardest damn thing in the world, in case no one knows that. The numbers are off the wall. Hotel rooms are 400% off the wall. I mean, you're paying for $500 for a room in Atlanta. You wouldn't have stayed in for $5, today. I'm saying to you, they gouge and they beat up the very people who makes it successful. Corporate parties, hell, I gave the corporate party. We had one at Adidas, and Nike does one, and Gatorade does one. We had a budget, what, Pammy, $1 million to do one party? I spent $1 million or $500, some obscene amount of money to have a party, which everybody has to have a party. We have to have a party. There's no question. But we couldn't invite the kids to the party. Can't do that. So we invited everyone looking for a drink or a prize or something to eat to come to our party. I never understood the logic of that. Those people that we invited to our party never bought a shoe in their life. But anyway, that's what we do. And that's where I am. So when I talk about the injustices, I've got 1,000 other things, and I know we got to get to classes, and I don't want you to miss. But I'm just saying to you, that's one of many, many, many things that has to be taken to task. People got to write stories. Reporters got to be honest when they write. And I honestly believe, I have this wild vision. Norma Ray's my idol. Remember Sally Field standing on the table? We're going on strike. I don't want to go on strike. I don't want these kids to get paid. I want them to be treated with dignity. I want things to change. I'm going to get a reaction because I'm electricity. There's 2 wires. It's going to happen. And we're going to do something. And I'm going to look to you and say, whatever your opinion is or is not of me, and that's fine. Don't like me or dislike me for any reason other than you want to personally. And you can dislike me also and think that I'm Darth Vader if you want. But just go ask yourself and answer the questions that I'm putting before you. Why should the kids that play the games, and why should corporations, and then why should these entities that run the corporations and the people make rules that apply to people? Why the NCAA would make rules applying to high school kids is beyond me. They're not even in college yet. You can't play in all-star games. You can't play in summer leagues. Our coaches can't go watch games only in 3 weeks in July. All the problems of July were started because the NCAA took away the recruiting. I think anybody with sane mind would tell you when you limit time and space, more things can happen, some not as good as others, because you have to be at these places. So in their infinite wisdom, instead of saying, gentlemen, pick out 30 days all summer and go recruit as much as you want, but 30 days or 10 days, I don't care, 1 day. But to isolate it to 3 weeks and say that's all they can go to, what the hell kind of rule is that? And you know what they do? And you can attest to this. The ones that need to help the most are the 17 and 18-year-old when they're doing contracts, when they're trying to apply to the NBA, when they're doing other things. You can't hire an agent. You can talk to somebody. You can get information. But these people, and I'll stay on the high school level, the people they shouldn't be able to control. When a high school kid could go to the NBA, once he put his name in, he could never take it out. Isn't that interesting? The one who was the least informed, had the least amount of advice, was the one who was allowed no exit strategy. Otherwise, you put it in and you listen to somebody that said you would go in a draft, and you were in. You couldn't get back. But a college kid has 2 tries to do it. Interesting, the high school kid has none. And just to speak, because I understand you had a speaker, a well-learned, intelligent man, here a couple weeks ago, and he said something about the NBA and the 16-year-old and 19-year-old rule. And I only say to him and others like him that they're allowed their opinion, and I respect their opinion. I really do. And everyone has a right to have that. And I believe he spoke with sincerity. But I only question one thing when this man and others like him make a statement that an age limit should be applied to basketball players. I don't know at what point in life we have a restriction on earning a living. When I've watched other athletes, other students in other walks of life have an opportunity to go earn a living. I don't know where you have that power over me. Now that's a rule, see? David and the Players Association got together and made a rule. They made this rule because the NCAA was bitching so much, and Dickie Vitale and Billy Packer and the likes of everybody else, and that genre would say to you, well, the game is suffering because these guys are going to the NBA and these guys aren't prepared to play in the NBA. You know what, ladies and gentlemen? It wasn't my thing to tell the leagues to sign these kids for $100 million. I never said they had to sign a contract. The brilliant owners of the teams are the ones that signed the kids to a contract. All I ever did, and I would continue to do as long as I live, is speak on behalf of these kids that they have the right to make that money. That's all. So anybody that speaks and says you can't, you have to question. They don't have that right to say you can't do anything. And Michael, I'm going to close, and I'd love to answer any questions. I really appreciate speaking to you, and I hope something sunk in. And you always hear this adage, if one person does something and it carries on, and I mean that sincerely. I would hope, and I would pray in a sense, not for the salvation of mankind, because I pray for it every day, but I pray that somewhere in your psyche, somewhere in your inborn intuition and wisdom you have, that you would say the rules of the whole lot in society are so different than the laws. The rules are applied by a small group of people that self-serve the entities that they're serving. And we should have a right to question the rules without being cast asunder. Thank you very, very much. It's been very enlightening. I'm so glad I traveled 2,500 miles, and thank you for having me. What do you want to do? Are we out of here now and go somewhere else? Anybody want to ask any questions?
People are not going to be able to go to the blue line, so we probably have time for 1 or 2 questions before we have to.
Anything real quick? Go ahead, young fella.
Well, you've talked a lot about treating the players as human and all
Right.
that. I guess my question is, without paying them, setting that issue aside, what else do you have in mind exactly?
4-year scholarship instead of 1. Guaranteed health insurance the minute they step on your campus, so all the involuntary workouts that they do. A stipend that allows them, or a clothing allowance that allows them to dress instead of wearing a sweatsuit to games, sweat jackets and things of this nature. Plane trips home. I know you're going to tell me, well, that's included now. I know you're going to tell me about the Pell Grant. I'm saying that definitely benefit them. I'm saying about social and physical things that apply to them. Living on the Duke campus is a hell of a lot different than living on the Youngstown State campus. Everything is a different standard. We went to some restaurants last night, and everything's different. The student body as a whole is quite different at most universities. So kids coming from another area to play in your sports can't feel as comfortable. So they've done surveys where the kids have a hard time mixing with the regular student body at most universities of high academic standards. But the high academic standards teams have some kids who weren't prepared academically and socially to be here. But they're here and they're adjusting and they want to do well. I'm saying, I don't need $10,000 or whatever. I need them to be treated well. The scholarship thing's a fraud, absolute fraud, because coaches can leave at their whim, and these kids don't have the freedom to leave. I mean, it's asinine. It's absolutely, but what does it do? It allows this university to maintain control. All they do with the way the scholarship is today is control you. You don't have any say-so. And I hope that answered a little bit without getting deep. I mean, there's other things, but I'm saying the social and financial welfare of them when they're on campus should be taken into consideration. I'm saying to you that they should be allowed a clothing allowance. They should be allowed other things so they can not stick out like a sore thumb if they don't wear whatever is hot. Anything else? Yeah, back there, young fellow.
I have two questions for you. One, what do you think of David Stern? And the other, what would a guy like Kevin Durant be going through right now as far as like real life with agents and shoe contracts and stuff like that?
Kevin Durant's okay. He's going to get like 50, 60 million from a shoe contract. He'll be the first or second pick. Kevin Durant was ahead of the curve. See, when you give me Kevin Durant or Greg Oden or a kid of this nature, you pretty much, all the bullshit about people not talking to him, they talk to his parents, as we both know. We all know that and that's the other problem. See, the facade of not allowing professionals to come in and speak to you as a group allows other people into it. And I'm saying to you that sometimes when you have clandestine meetings, those people really are a little bit different than what someone else would be. So Kevin will be fine. He's going through, you know what, he can't wait to June 26th. I mean, he's not coming back. And that takes me to the case where, and I'm, from an egotistical, sadistic, selfish reason, I want all the freshmen to leave to show you, the public, that the one-year thing is a fraud. I don't agree with Bobby Knight too much. But when he said, what the hell does 1 year in have to do with student-athlete? Nothing. Nothing at all. So that's going to serve my purpose a hell of a lot better than if they would have gone from high school. To answer your second question, I think Stern is the best, absolute best commissioner in all sports. And why? Not so much for what he's done for the players, what he's done for his game. He's taken it worldwide. He's available to everybody, unlike the other, I don't know what, this guy Bud Selig got $14 million bonus the other day. I don't know what the hell baseball's doing. But I'm saying to you, Stern is least on top of it. When he makes the Stern rule, he makes it. He banished the guy for a year, he banished the guy for a year. Football finally was forced to do what Pac-Man and his buddy the other day. I mean, the guy did everything to have an assault rifle shooting people. So I think Stern is a great commissioner. Great commissioner. Go ahead, sir.
I have a twofold question.
Please.
What's your opinion on, I hate to use the word street agents, but guys who are not really agents, but they can act sort of as a handler for players who are looking at coming out or talking to shoe companies? And also, there's a lot of rumors that Nike's paying guys like Wes Wesley and that group to deliver players to them. Is there any truth to that?
You know what? Yeah, well, that's a great question. I mean, that's a question that should be answered. But the only thing I'll say to you that, without me naming the names that you named, okay, they basically have entree onto your campus also. And you're only concerned about them delivering them to the shoe company or whatever. I'm saying to you, because I was on the other end of this, I'm saying to you that at some point in time, your coaches have to control these entities. If you ever put the first roadblock up, the second would be harder. See, it starts here, but somehow we're like the lady would cover with the justice, only there's no justice here. The college coaches are as much implicit in what's happening when the game's over as anybody. I blame the universities as much as I blame, the shoe companies. Do they want to get Kevin Durant? Yeah. Well, they don't give a damn. And if there's individuals who can get them Kevin Durant without working for him directly, they don't care. I told you half an hour ago. It's the bottom line. They wanted Michael Jordan. They wanted Tracy. They wanted Kobe. Okay. Anything else? Thank you very, very much, and I appreciate you being here.